My husband carried on an affair for 4 years. My mother advised me to pretend I knew nothing. Following her advice, I endured it until his mistress gave birth. A month later, everyone saw just how brilliant my mother's strategy truly was. A late summer weekend in Los Angeles was sweltering. Crowds of people flocked to the shopping malls to seek refuge in the air conditioning. I joined the crowd, but not to shop for myself. It had been a long time since I remembered the habit of rewarding myself with a new dress or a pretty lipstick. I came here to buy a new dress shirt for Kevin, my husband. Lately, he had been complaining about work pressure, having to meet many clients, and needing to dress sharply. Hearing that, even though my heart had grown somewhat cold after 2 years of living together like strangers, I still tried to fulfill my role as a wife. Our marriage had once been very sweet. 4 years ago, Kevin and I married with the blessings of both our families. He was a sophisticated man, well-spoken, and always knew how to make me smile. But over the last 2 years, he had changed. Family dinners became rare, and words of care and concern dried up. He left early and came home late, the excuse always being work. I had asked myself, tormented myself, did I do something wrong, or is it just the nature of marriage to fade over time? I tried to reignite the spark, cooking his favorite meals, dressing nicer at home, but the only response was his indifference, and sometimes, his irritability. Gradually, I grew tired, and our house was left with nothing but a terrifying silence. I strolled past the men's fashion stores, my eyes scanning for a shirt that would fit Kevin's build. Suddenly, a familiar silhouette caught my eye. At the maternity and newborn section opposite me, a tall man wearing the olive green polo shirt I had personally ironed this morning was standing there. My heart skipped a beat. It was Kevin. There was no mistaking him. And he wasn't alone. Beside him was a young woman with a clearly visible, heavily pregnant belly. She was resting her head on Kevin's shoulder, their hands intertwined. Kevin was holding a pastel pink maternity dress against her, smiling gently, his eyes filled with a doting affection that I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. That scene was like a knife plunging straight into my heart. Everything around me blurred. The noisy chatter and laughter of the mall suddenly felt miles away. All I could hear was the sound of my own heart shattering. I quickly hid behind a large pillar, my hands trembling, as I pulled out my phone. I didn't know why I was doing it. Perhaps it was just a subconscious reflex to record the evidence of this brutal reality. My fingers tapped erratically on the screen, taking photos and recording a short video. I saw Kevin wrap his arm around the girl's waist. They whispered something to each other and laughed happily. They looked exactly like a happy family. Meanwhile, I, his legal wife, had to sneak around, hiding behind a pillar like a thief. They walked to the checkout counter together. I held my breath and watched. Kevin pulled out his wallet, and what he handed the cashier left me stunned. It was the authorized user credit card I had opened for him, linked to my primary account. For so long, he had told me his salary had to be used for large business investments and networking, so he asked me to cover the household expenses. I had believed him. I hadn't suspected a thing. It turned out my money wasn't just being used to take care of our small family, but also to help him build another family on the side. Agony coiled in my chest, but strangely, I didn't cry. Perhaps the pain was so immense that my tears had dried up. I stood rooted to the spot, watching them leave hand in hand, carrying bags of adorable baby clothes. Only after they were gone did I slowly slump down, my back leaning against the cold pillar. I had been systematically and ruthlessly betrayed. My husband, the person I once loved and trusted the most, had deceived me. And this deception seemed to be far more than just a simple affair. I don't know how I left the mall or how I managed to drive to my mother's house. For the entire drive, my mind was blank. The image of Kevin caressing that woman played on a loop like a slow-motion film. The shirt I had intended to buy for him was still in the paper bag. It looked so ironic now. Arriving at the house, I rushed into my old bedroom, slammed the door shut, and collapsed onto the bed. Only then did the tears I had been trying to hold back begin to fall, hot and bitter. My mother, Laura, heard the commotion and rushed in. Seeing my pathetic state, she didn't ask many questions. She just quietly sat down beside me and gently patted my back. Her hands were as warm and steady as always, forever my safest refuge. Between sobs, I told her everything. I showed her the photos and the short videos I had taken. I thought my mother would be furious, that she would curse Kevin and tell me to go make a massive scene to get to the bottom of it. But no. After looking at the evidence, her face hardened, but her voice was strangely calm. She didn't seem surprised. It was almost as if she had anticipated something like this. She held my hand, wiped my tears, and said, "Hush now. What will crying solve? Are you planning to go home, scream at him, and curse him out? And then what? Divorce?" I froze. Divorce? I had never thought of that word. Despite the coldness and the misery, I had never once thought I would divorce Kevin. "I don't know, Mom. My mind is a mess." My mother sighed. A sigh filled with the understanding and experience of someone who had seen much of life. She looked straight into my eyes, her voice firm. "Listen to me, Chloe. Things have reached a point where this is no longer just a simple affair. Think about it. He dared to use your credit card to buy things for his mistress, and baby clothes for a child about to be born, no less. That proves he has zero respect for you, and he has been planning this for a long time. If you blow this up now, you'll only back yourself into a corner. He will vehemently deny it, or worse, he will admit it and force you into an immediate divorce. What will you have in your hands then? A few secretly taken photos? That's not enough, sweetheart." Every word my mother said was like a bucket of ice water poured over my head, snapping me back to reality. She was right. If I blew everything up now, what would I gain besides the title of a jealous, hysterical wife? Kevin would easily wash his hands of everything, and I would be the loser. Then, what should I do, Mom? I asked, my voice still trembling. My mother gripped my hand tighter, transferring an invisible strength to me. "From now on, you must pretend you know absolutely nothing. Go home and continue to be the gentle, dutiful wife. The more oblivious you seem, the more he will lower his guard. During this time, you and I will secretly gather evidence. Not just evidence of his infidelity, but evidence regarding assets and money. I suspect he isn't acting alone. His family might know and be covering for him. We need to find out exactly what he has been doing behind your back for the past 2 years. Once we have everything in our hands, we will deal him a fatal blow that he won't be able to deny. My daughter will not suffer such an injustice." My mother's plan made me both terrified and slightly hopeful. Pretending to know nothing when my heart was shattered, having to face a traitor every single day. It was torture. But she was right. This was not the time for weakness. I had been deceived for too long. It was time for me to seek my own justice. I wasn't doing this just for myself, but for my parents, for everything my family had invested into this marriage. I wiped my tears and took a deep breath to compose myself. I looked at my mother, my eyes turning resolute. "Yes, Mom, I'll listen to you. I can do it." My mother nodded, her eyes shining with satisfaction and sympathy. She pulled me into a hug. "That's my girl. Be strong. Mom is right here. From now on, there are 2 of us in this war." That evening, I returned to the house I once called a home. Kevin had gotten back before me. He was sitting in the living room watching TV. Seeing me, he just cast a brief glance and asked casually, "Where were you? You're home late." I went over to my mom's for a bit. "Oh, I bought you a new dress shirt." I smiled, a smile that took every ounce of my willpower to force out, and handed him the paper bag. Kevin took it without even bothering to open it, gave a non-committal grunt, and glued his eyes back to the screen. His indifference in that moment was a stroke of luck. He didn't notice the anomaly in my eyes. He didn't realize how forced my smile was. That night, I lay with my back to him, pretending to be fast asleep, but in the dark, my eyes were wide open. My war had truly just begun. The following days were the longest of my life. Living in the same house, eating at the same table, sleeping in the same bed with the person who betrayed me was pure agony. Every morning I still woke up early to prepare breakfast and iron Kevin's clothes for work. Every evening I still waited up and set the table for him. I played the role of a capable wife without a single word of complaint. A smile was always on my lips, but inside, my heart had turned to stone. Kevin didn't seem to notice my internal shift, Or perhaps he was so preoccupied with his new happiness that he had no mental capacity left to pay attention to his old, worn-out wife. The more perfect my facade, the more he dropped his guard. He continued leaving early and coming home late, still taking sneaky phone calls in the bathroom, still hastily deleting text messages. But now, none of his actions escaped my notice. Following my mother's instructions, I began my own investigation, starting with the finances. Previously, I had completely trusted Kevin. Every month he gave me a set amount for living expenses. The rest, he claimed, was for savings and investments. I never questioned his bonuses or salary increases. That was my biggest mistake. I started by reviewing all the bank statements from our joint account and my personal accounts over the past 2 years. I sat for hours in my home office, cross-checking every number, and then I discovered something highly suspicious. Over a year ago, Kevin got promoted, and his salary increased by nearly 50%. I knew this because he had happily bragged about it to a friend on the phone once, but the amount of money he gave me every month didn't increase at all. In fact, there were a few months where it unreasonably decreased, with him citing company struggles and cut bonuses. Where did that discrepancy go? I carefully recorded all the numbers and unusual dates in a notebook. The more I calculated, the more chills ran down my spine. The money funneled away over the past 2 years was no small sum. It was enough to put a massive down payment on a luxury condo. Next, I found a way to check his phone. This was much harder because Kevin was extremely cautious. His phone rarely left his hand, but the opportunity eventually arose. One evening, he went to take a shower and left his phone on the study desk. My heart pounded. I quickly locked the door and grabbed the device. Luckily, he hadn't changed his passcode. I had very little time. I skipped the iMessage and WhatsApp apps because I knew he would have deleted the evidence. I went straight to his contacts. Scrolling through, I didn't see any suspicious women's names, but then I stopped at a very oddly saved contact. Client, the Brentwood. I tapped to see the details. It was a phone number not linked to any familiar messaging apps. My intuition told me something was wrong. Why save a client's name with a specific location attached? The Brentwood was a newly built, high-end luxury apartment complex in West LA. I quickly used my own phone to take a picture of that number. I also swiftly checked his call history. This client, the Brentwood, appeared with heavy frequency. Some days there were up to 10 calls, some lasting over an hour. Notably, the calls usually took place around noon or late at night. Just then, I heard the water in the shower turn off. I jolted, hurriedly exited the contacts, cleared the recent apps, and placed the phone exactly where I found it. A few seconds later, Kevin walked out. My heart was still racing, but I maintained a calm expression, pretending to read a book. That night, I told my mother about my new discoveries over the phone. My mother pondered for a moment and said, "Don't call that number yet. Just hold on to it. As for the Brentwood, go check it out tomorrow. But be extremely careful. Don't let him spot you." Yes, I know. And regarding the finances, I'll keep gathering evidence, printing all the statements, marking the anomalies. Everything must be documented in black and white so it holds up in court. Hanging up, I felt a surge of motivation. The road ahead was full of thorns, but I was no longer alone. I had my mother by my side, mapping out every move. The first clues had surfaced, and I knew I was on the right track. The veil of secrecy covering Kevin's betrayal was slowly being lifted. The next morning, I told Kevin I was spending the whole day at my mother's house and wouldn't be back until evening. He couldn't have cared less, just nodding to dismiss me. The more indifferent he was, the easier my plan was to execute. After Kevin left for work, I didn't go to my mother's. I drove straight to the Brentwood luxury apartments in West LA. It was a new, upscale, and highly secure community. Strangers couldn't enter freely without a resident key fob. I parked at a coffee shop across the street, offering a clear view of the complex's main gate. I ordered a coffee, sat in a hidden corner, and began my stakeout. Time dragged on slowly. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. Would Kevin come here, or was this just a coincidence? Hundreds of questions swirled in my head. Around noon, a familiar car slowly approached the gates. It was Kevin's BMW. My chest tightened. He had lied to me, saying he was meeting a client in Orange County, yet here he was. His car stopped at the security gate. He swiped a fob and drove straight into the underground garage. So, it was true. He either owned an apartment here, or his mistress lived here. My intuition was spot on. I sat in the coffee shop, my hands clenched into fists. What should I do next? I couldn't just waltz in there. I sat for a while longer, trying to think. I couldn't just sit here waiting hopelessly. I decided to take a walk around the complex to see if I could find a way to get more information. I walked along the perimeter fence, pretending to be a local out for a stroll. When I got near the lobby area of Tower B, I saw a few delivery drivers standing around waiting. An idea flashed in my mind. I approached a young delivery guy, pulled out a crisp $50 bill, and spoke softly. "Excuse me, could you do me a quick favor? I want to send a surprise gift to a relative in this building, but I completely forgot her apartment number. Is there any way you could check your delivery app history to see which apartment belongs to this phone number?" I read him the client, the Brentwood number I had photographed. The driver looked at me skeptically, then looked at the $50 bill in my hand, hesitating. I quickly added, "My sister just had a baby, and I just want to surprise her. Please help me out." Hearing that, the young man seemed to trust me more. He nodded, pulled out his phone, and typed my number into his company's internal delivery app. A moment later, he looked up and said, "Yeah, here it is. This number belongs to the resident of apartment B1708. The name is Tiffany." Tiffany. A pretty name, but to me right now, it was like a knife slashing my heart. B1708. Now I had a specific address. I thanked the driver, shoved the money into his hand, and quickly walked away. I returned to my car, feeling a mix of rage and a strange sense of triumph. Finally, I knew where the other woman lived. Apartment 1708, Tower B, the Brentwood. A luxury apartment. The rent or mortgage was certainly not cheap. All the salary and bonuses Kevin had hidden from me were likely being poured into this place. He had used my hard-earned money and sweat to support another woman, to build another home. I didn't drive away immediately. I sat in my car, staring up at the towering high-rise. I imagined Kevin and this mistress named Tiffany happily together in that cozy apartment up there. They were having lunch, talking, preparing together to welcome a little life. Meanwhile, I, his lawful wife, was sitting here alone, gnawing on my pain and betrayal. A wave of fury rose within me. I wanted to storm up there, bang on the door of B1708, and confront them. But my mother's warning echoed in my ears. Stay calm, do not act stupidly. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to regulate my breathing. Not yet. Now was not the time. I needed more evidence. Irrefutable evidence. I sat in my car until late afternoon. Just after 5 p.m., I saw Kevin's car exit the underground garage. He drove off, probably heading back to our house, returning to his role as the model husband. I waited a bit longer, then started the engine. But I wasn't heading home. I drove to the office of a private investigator a friend had quietly recommended. I knew there were things I couldn't do myself. I needed photos, videos recording Kevin and this woman entering and exiting that apartment together. I needed concrete proof of their relationship. This was a war I had to win, and I had to win it flawlessly. After hiring the PI, my mind felt temporarily at ease. At least I didn't have to follow Kevin myself anymore. It was dangerous and easily exposed. I gave them the address for B1708 and Kevin's known schedule. The rest was just waiting. During that time, I continued my act. I was still gentle, still attentive to Kevin. I even proactively suggested we go see a movie over the weekend to rekindle our romance. Of course, Kevin declined. He said he had to meet an important client out of town and couldn't make it. Hearing that, I just smiled and said, "Drive safely. Make sure to take care of your health." But in my heart, I knew exactly who his important client was and where they would be. A few days later, I received a call from Sarah, the wife of Mark, who was a close colleague and Kevin's direct supervisor at his firm. Sarah and I were quite close. We often grabbed coffee or went shopping together. Hey Chloe, are you free this weekend? Let's hit the spa. You've been looking a little pale lately, she offered. I gladly accepted. I needed someone to talk to relieve some of the heavy stress weighing on my chest. We met at a familiar day spa in Beverly Hills on a Saturday afternoon. While we were relaxing, Sarah suddenly asked, Hey Chloe, I'm going to ask you something honestly. Please don't be mad. Is something going on between you and Kevin? I was startled, but tried to keep my composure. Why do you ask? Everything's normal with us. Sarah looked at me sympathetically, lowering her voice. Honestly, the last few times we had company dinners, Kevin's attitude was really strange. He acts like a single man. The new young girls at the office crowd around him and flirt, and he doesn't stop them at all. He actually encourages it. My heart gave a painful twinge, but I forced a smile. He's probably just joking around, Sarah. You know Kevin likes to be the life of the party. Sarah sighed, clearly not believing me. She hesitated for a moment, then told me something that truly shocked me. I heard this from some people in Kevin's department. They said Kevin told everyone that you two divorced 2 years ago. Right now, he's known as the Golden Bachelor of the company. Everyone believes it, because for the last 2 years, no one has seen you at any company events. He always goes to the holiday parties and corporate retreats alone. Every word Sarah said struck my head like a sledgehammer. Divorced for 2 years, the Golden Bachelor. So, in the eyes of his coworkers, I had ceased to be his wife a long time ago. He had constructed a perfect facade, a sophisticated web of lies to cover up his double life. He wasn't just lying to me, he was lying to everyone around him. The pain I felt transformed into absolute, boundless rage. He had trampled on my dignity, denied my existence, and turned our marriage into a complete joke. For 2 years, while I stayed home, nurturing our family and worrying about him, he was acting out a completely different play outside. A play where he was a successful, free man without any ties. Seeing my face turn ashen, Sarah worriedly grabbed my hand. Chloe, are you okay? Is it possible people just misheard? I shook my head, forcing a twisted smile. I'm fine, Sarah. It's probably just a misunderstanding. I'll ask Kevin about it when I get home. But I knew there was no misunderstanding here. It was all true. A naked, cruel truth. It explained everything. His coldness, his sudden business trips, his indifference to our family, because in his mind, this family no longer existed. Leaving the spa, I didn't go straight home. I drove aimlessly through the busy streets of Los Angeles. I thought I had mentally prepared myself for the worst, but this truth still broke me. He didn't just cheat. He wanted to completely erase my existence from his life. That night, when Kevin came home, I looked at him with different eyes. I looked at the man sitting across from me, the man I had once loved, the man who was my husband, yet he felt as foreign as a stranger. Who was he? How many different lives was he living that I knew nothing about? I didn't ask him about what Sarah had said. I knew asking was useless. He would just deny it or invent another excuse. I simply watched his every gesture, his every word in silence, and I realized it was all fake. His smile, his superficial concern, it was all part of the act he had meticulously crafted. That night, I received the first email from the private investigator. Attached were high-resolution photos, Kevin and his mistress, Tiffany, walking hand in hand into the lobby of the Brentwood, Kevin carrying large shopping bags while she linked arms with him intimately. There were photos of them, grocery shopping together, having dinner at a fancy restaurant. They looked so happy, so much like newlyweds. I looked at every photo, and my heart no longer felt pain, only a vast emptiness and a seething hatred. His web of lies. I swore I would tear it to shreds with my own 2 hands. The deeper I dug into the investigation, the more I realized Kevin's betrayal didn't stop at just romance. It was like an iceberg. The hidden part was much larger and far more terrifying. After the shock of Kevin claiming he was divorced to his colleagues, a vague unease about the house we were living in began to settle over me. This house was the result of both our efforts, but the majority of the hefty down payment had been provided by my parents. At the time, they gave us a large sum of money to cover the down payment, and we took out a mortgage for the rest. They considered it my wedding gift, so I would have a stable home and not have to bounce around renting. Kevin was incredibly grateful back then, constantly saying he would remember my parents' generosity for the rest of his life. Thinking back on those words now only brought a bitter taste to my mouth. One afternoon, using the excuse of cleaning out the home office, I began searching through our paperwork. I told Kevin I needed to find an old insurance policy to check some clauses. He didn't suspect a thing, just grunting in agreement. My heart pounded as I opened the filing cabinet containing our real estate documents. All the papers related to the purchase and the mortgage were neatly kept in a brown leather portfolio. I carefully pulled out the grant deed, the document proving ownership of the property. I still remembered the day we excitedly held this document in our hands. Back then, it was a symbol of our home, our future. I turned the pages, my eyes straining to read every line. And then, my heart seemed to stop beating. On the second page, under the section listing the grantees, the property owners, alongside my name and Kevin's, 2 new names had appeared. The names of my father-in-law and mother-in-law. 4 names, neatly printed, clearly stamped with the official seal of the Los Angeles County Registrar Recorder. My entire body ran cold. What was this? Why were his parents' names on here? What right did they have to this house? I slumped into the desk chair, my head spinning. I tried to rack my brain to see if I had ever signed any documents related to this. Absolutely not. Kevin or his parents had never mentioned adding their names to the deed. So where did these 2 names come from? A feeling of intense disgust rose in my throat. This was no longer just Kevin's betrayal. This was a meticulously calculated conspiracy involving his entire family. They had treated me like a fool, an outsider in my own home. They had secretly and stealthily converted our marital asset, an asset heavily funded by my family, into the joint property of their entire extended family. Trembling, I took a picture of the deed, showing the 4 names, and sent it immediately to my mother. A few minutes later, she called me, her voice filled with shock and fury. "My God, how is this possible? When did they do this without you knowing?" "I don't know, Mom, I really don't know. I never signed any papers for this," I sobbed. My mother fell silent for a moment to collect herself. Then she spoke with a steely voice. "Chloe, calm down and listen to me. He definitely tricked you into signing a quitclaim deed or some other legal document without you noticing. He probably slipped it into a stack of other papers and had you sign it. These people are purely toxic. But it's okay. Put that deed back exactly where you found it. Don't let him know you discovered it. Let Mom handle this. I have an old friend who used to work at the county recorder's office. I'll ask her to check the original public records for this property. We need to find out if they forged your signature or what trick they used." My mother's words acted as a tranquilizer, helping me calm down. She was right. I couldn't collapse now. I had to find the truth. This betrayal had gone too far. It had touched my family, touched the hard work and love my parents had poured into me. They didn't just want to steal my husband, they wanted to steal my house too. I would never let them get their way. That evening, Kevin came home, still wearing his nonchalant expression as if nothing was wrong. He even asked if I had found the insurance policy. I smiled, a freezing cold smile. I found it. I put it away safely. I looked deep into his eyes, trying to find a trace of the man I used to love. But no, there was only deceit and calculation. He and his entire family had woven a net to trap me, to seize everything I owned, but they were wrong. The prey they thought was weak would not be easily broken. Before the shock of the deed had even subsided, a new wave of attacks hit. This time, a frontal assault. Quote, "One evening, while I was reviewing the evidence I had collected, my phone chimed with a friend request on Instagram from an unknown account. The username was Sunny, Tiff. The profile picture was a sunflower. I normally didn't accept requests from strangers, but some intuition urged me to click on her profile. My heart tightened once again. Sunny, Tiff's feed was overflowing with pictures of a happily pregnant woman, and that person was none other than Tiffany, my husband's mistress. There were photos of her standing on the balcony of the Brentwood apartment, the Los Angeles city skyline twinkling behind her. There were photos of her sitting in the passenger seat of Kevin's car, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, smiling contentedly. And the most painful one was a photo of her with Kevin, her head resting on his shoulder. Both were looking at the camera with radiant smiles. The photo was captioned, "Just praying our baby boy is born healthy, looks exactly like his daddy, and loves his mommy." The blood in my veins boiled. This was clearly a blatant provocation. She was intentionally showing me all of this. Before I could decide whether to accept the request, a direct message popped up. "Hi, Chloe, it's Tiffany." I stared at the text on the screen. She actually had the audacity to message me directly. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm just like my mother told me. I didn't reply. I just left it on read. A few seconds later, the next message arrived. "I know you know about me and Kevin. I don't want to hide anything from you. We truly love each other. Kevin told me the feelings between you two died a long time ago. He just hasn't found the right time to tell you yet." My hand gripped the phone so hard my veins popped. That tone, feigning innocence, yet utterly shameless, made me want to smash the phone to pieces. But I didn't. I knew this was also evidence. I screenshot all the messages. Seeing I wasn't replying, Tiffany continued her assault. This time, she sent an ultrasound photo. My and Kevin's son, Chloe. He's 5 months along now, very healthy. The doctor says he looks just like his dad. A lump formed in my throat, choking me. She was using the baby in her womb to attack me, the legal wife who didn't have a child. 4 years into our marriage, we had hoped for children, but we kept putting it off because Kevin said he wanted to focus on his career. It turned out it wasn't that he didn't want kids, he just didn't want them with me. In the days that followed, Tiffany continuously terrorized me with messages and photos. Sometimes it was a picture of Kevin cooking for her. Sometimes it was a video of him rubbing her pregnant belly and talking to the baby. She bragged about the expensive things Kevin bought her, about the happy future he promised. Her goal was glaringly obvious: to anger me, to make me lose my temper, to force me to blow up and demand a divorce myself. That way, she would legitimately become the winner. I told my mother about this. After hearing it, my mother gave a disdainful laugh. "That girl is young and green. Does she think these childish tricks can break you? Let her send them. The more silent you are, the more frustrated she'll get. Just keep screenshotting everything and saving it as evidence. Later in court, these things will show her true colors. A shameless, scheming homewrecker. But it makes me so angry, Mom. Every time I see her messages, I can barely control myself." "Then just treat it like you're watching a play. A play where you already know the ending. Just calmly watch to see what other tricks that girl can perform. The calmer you are, the more leverage you have. Understand?" Listening to my mother, I tried to adjust my mindset. I no longer felt pain from Tiffany's provocations. Instead, I felt pity for her. She was smug, thinking she had stolen a good man and a happy family, completely unaware that she was just another pawn in the schemes of Kevin and his family. A man who could treat the wife he shared a bed with for 4 years so ruthlessly could easily do the exact same thing to her one day. I didn't reply to any messages, nor did I block Tiffany's account. I just left it there, acting as a silent audience, collecting piece after piece of evidence for the final takedown. I thought Tiffany's shamelessness would stop at bragging about their romance and the pregnancy, but I was wrong. One day, she sent me a message whose contents left me truly stunned. "Kevin told me that on your wedding day, your parents gave you a stunning vintage diamond tennis bracelet and necklace set as a family heirloom. I really love that vintage style. I bet when we get married, I'll have Kevin order a custom set exactly like it." I read the message over and over again, a deep sense of dread creeping into my heart. That diamond set was my mother's priceless heirloom. She had given it to me on my wedding day with strict instructions to keep it safe. It wasn't just financially valuable. It held immense sentimental value as my family's blessing to me. Besides me, Kevin, and my parents, no one knew of its existence. Why would Kevin tell his mistress about such a private item? And why was she intentionally bringing it up now? My intuition screamed that something was terribly wrong. I rushed into the bedroom, where we kept a hidden wall safe for important documents and valuables. There were 2 keys to the safe. I had one, Kevin had the other. My hands shook as I inserted the key and dialed the combination. The heavy steel door swung open. The inside was empty. The red velvet box containing the diamond heirloom set was gone. The folder containing the original house deed was also gone. Only a few personal bank books in my name and some spare cash remained. It felt as if all the strength had been drained from my body. I collapsed onto the floor. They took it. Kevin had personally opened the safe and taken my most precious heirloom. He took the property deed, too. He took everything. He wasn't just a romantic traitor and a financial fraud. He was a thief inside his own home. Tears streamed down my face. This was no longer the pain of a betrayed wife, but the profound trauma of having my trust ruthlessly trampled. I had thought that even if his heart changed, there would at least be some lingering shred of decency between us. But no. This action proved that in his eyes, I meant absolutely nothing. Every memory, every bond of gratitude, had been mercilessly tossed away. I called my mother, my voice cracking through my sobs. After listening, she was silent for a very long time. I could feel the fury boiling within her, through her heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Very well. Those bastards. They've gone this far. They don't just want you to leave empty-handed. They want to strip you of everything that belongs to you. Suddenly, her voice calmed down, becoming cold and decisive. Chloe, stop crying. Useless tears won't solve anything. Listen to me. By taking the deed and the jewelry, they just slipped the noose around their own necks. Keep pretending you haven't discovered a thing. Do not let anything slip. Let them be smug. Mom has a plan to handle this. I didn't know what my mother intended to do, but her calmness reassured me. I wiped my tears and forced myself to stand up. The pain had morphed into pure wrath. The weakness was replaced by an iron will. Whatever they took from me, I would make sure to take back tenfold. I had no regrets left for this marriage. The only thing I wanted now was justice. Justice for myself and for my family. I looked back at the empty safe, silently vowing, Kevin, you and your family can enjoy yourselves for now, because your happy times will not last much longer. After the shock of losing my heirloom and the deed, I followed my mother's instructions and absolutely hid any sign that I knew what happened. I played my part so perfectly that sometimes I disgusted myself, but every time I thought of the empty safe, the hatred within me reignited. Meanwhile, my mother took action. She had an old friend whose husband used to work at the county assessor's office. Although he was retired, his connections remained. My mother reached out for a favor, presenting the story tactfully. She merely said she wanted to double-check her daughter's property records because a few details seemed unclear, and she feared a clerical error. A few days later, her friend called back. The information provided confirmed our worst suspicions. Laura, I checked. It's true. The deed to your daughter's house underwent a title transfer to add your in-laws. The quitclaim deed was filed and recorded almost a year ago. My mother suppressed her anger and asked, So, does the file contain the full signatures of both my daughter and her husband? Yes, Laura, the voice on the other end replied after a brief pause. By law, adding or changing ownership of a marital asset requires a notarized signature from both parties. The archived file contains a fully notarized quitclaim deed, bearing both Chloe's and Kevin's signatures. Hearing this, my mother understood everything. She thanked her friend and hung up, her face rigid. That evening, when I went over to her house, my mother pulled me into a room and recounted the entire conversation. Just as I suspected, he tricked you into signing a fraudulent document, my mother asserted. I racked my brain, trying to remember. Almost a year ago. Did anything unusual happen during that time? I frowned, thinking hard. Then, a faint memory surfaced. Mom, I remember now. Around that time, Kevin handed me a massive stack of papers and told me to sign them. He said it was an employee stock option and preferential loan packet from his company to invest in some internal project. He said the paperwork was tedious and required lots of signatures, so he had put sticky notes pointing to exactly where I needed to sign. I didn't suspect a thing. I was rushing to get to work, so I just signed without reading it carefully. My mother slammed her hand on the table. My God, That's it. He slipped the quitclaim deed, adding his parents into that stack of loan papers to trick you. That bastard. He and his whole family have been calculating every move for a very long time. The truth being exposed made me feel both resentful and furious at my own stupidity and gullibility. I had personally signed the paperwork, giving away my own property, without even realizing it. Their plot was so malicious, so sophisticated. They had exploited my trust to stab me in the back. So what do we do now, Mom? The signature is genuinely mine. How can we deny it? I asked anxiously. My mother looked at me, her eyes uncharacteristically sharp. The signature is real, but the intent behind signing it was fraudulently obtained. This is fraud and property theft. Don't worry, we won't blow it up now. Let them think their perfect plan succeeded. We will gather more evidence about how he tricked you into signing those papers. Do you remember if anyone else was present? Or if he sent you any emails or texts about that preferential loan? I shook my head. It was just the two of us at home. And as for texts, he always preferred talking about important things rather than texting. My mother pondered. It's fine. If we don't have direct evidence, we'll find indirect evidence. Leave that to me. Your job right now is to stay completely calm. The weaker and more oblivious you appear, the more arrogant they will get, and they'll reveal more flaws. Leaving my mother's house, my heart felt heavy, but also much clearer. My in-laws' conspiracy had been unmasked. I was no longer a confused victim. I knew exactly who my enemies were and what their goals were. They wanted everything, and I wouldn't give them a single cent. I would fight this war to the end, not just to reclaim my assets, but to reclaim the dignity and justice they had trampled on. After my mother and I uncovered the plot to steal the house, Kevin's family seemed completely oblivious. They remained carefree and smug, believing everything was going exactly according to their perfect plan. Perhaps because I remained silent and compliant, Kevin began laying a new trap, an even bigger one, aiming for my personal savings. Recently, Kevin's attitude had taken a dizzying 180-degree turn. He was no longer cold and indifferent. Instead, he showed surprising, gentle affection. He came home earlier, occasionally bought me flowers, and even proactively helped with chores. He talked about our early dating memories, about the future plans we used to dream up. His performance was so flawless that if I didn't already know his true face, I might have softened and believed he had truly repented. But I didn't. This sudden change only made me more vigilant. I knew that behind this sweetness lay an even more bitter plot, and I didn't have to wait long. One evening, after dinner, Kevin brewed me a cup of chamomile tea and sat down next to me, looking extremely excited. "Chloe, there's something I want to discuss with you." "What is it?" I feigned curiosity. He lowered his voice, acting secretive. "My company is raising internal capital to invest in a massive luxury real estate development in Miami. This opportunity is exclusively for management-level executives. Outsiders can't get in. The guaranteed minimum return is 30% a year, babe. Absolutely safe." I took a sip of tea, sneering internally. Another internal investment scheme. But I still feigned interest. Really, the returns are that high. But are there any risks? Don't worry, the board has already approved the project. All the legal paperwork is solid. I reviewed it all myself. It's a guaranteed win. I'm planning to put all my savings into it, but I'm still a little short. He paused here, giving me a meaningful look. I knew the main act was about to start. "How much are you short?" I calculated it, and if we had about another $50,000, our investment tier would be perfect, granting us the highest possible return rate. I remember you have a personal high-yield savings account with about that much in it, right? The money your parents gave you a while back. So his target was clear. $50,000. That was the money my parents gave me as a personal safety net for the future. I had put it in a savings account and barely touched it. Kevin knew very well about the existence of these funds. Seeing me remain silent, he grabbed my hand, his voice earnest. "Chloe, I know this is your personal money, but think about it. We are husband and wife. Your money is my money. My money is your money. We invest together, and when we get the profits, we enjoy them together. When that time comes, I'll buy you whatever you want. We'll travel the world, making up for the past few years where I was too focused on work and neglected you." His words were so sweet, so persuasive. He painted a beautiful vision of the future, playing on the psychology of a wife wanting to mend her relationship. If I were the woman from a few months ago, I might not have hesitated to hand it all over to him. But now, I just found it laughable. However, I didn't refuse immediately. I needed to see how he would continue to play his part. I acted hesitant, but that's a lot of money. I need time to think about it. Kevin immediately looked sympathetic. "Of course, take your time to think it over. But please hurry. The investment slots are limited. We only have until this week. Everyone at the company is fighting for a spot." In the days that followed, Kevin constantly pressured me. He sent me confidential documents about the project and attractive profit projection spreadsheets. He even had a coworker call me, pretending to be a financial advisor, to confirm the project's feasibility and safety. Everything was elaborately staged, without a single flaw. I pretended to be completely convinced. I told Kevin I agreed and scheduled to go to the bank with him over the weekend to withdraw the money and sign the contract. Kevin was ecstatic. He hugged me tightly, thanking me profusely, and making endless promises. Seeing the unconcealable, triumphant smile on his face, I felt nothing but boundless disgust. The trap was set, but he didn't know the prey he was targeting was waiting to spring a trap right back on him. Friday, the scheduled day to go to the bank, arrived. That morning, Kevin woke up very early, unable to hide his joyful expression. He ironed a sharp outfit, whistling happily. He even proactively went into the kitchen to help me make breakfast, something he hadn't done in 4 years. Looking at him, I knew he was counting every second until he had the $50,000 in his hands. I was also ready. I wore a simple dress, light makeup, and didn't forget to bring my bank book and ID. I had informed my mother of Kevin's plan beforehand. My mother only gave me one instruction: just go with him, leave the rest to me. At exactly 9 a.m., Kevin and I headed to the car. He gallantly opened the door for me, his gestures as gentle as when we first started dating. On the way to the bank, he didn't stop talking about his future plans after receiving the investment returns. "We'll upgrade to a bigger SUV, babe, and at the end of the year, we'll take a trip to Europe. Which country do you want to visit most?" I just smiled and nodded, secretly thinking that the only trip he was going to experience was a trip straight down to rock bottom. We arrived at the bank. Kevin parked and walked inside with me. He acted very professional, talking to the teller about withdrawing a large sum of money. While I was doing the paperwork, preparing to sign the withdrawal slip, my phone suddenly rang frantically. It was my mother's number. I glanced at Kevin, acting apologetic, and answered. "Hello, Mom. What's going on?" On the other end, my mother's voice was panicked and rushed, mixed with sobbing. "Chloe, your dad had a stroke. They rushed him to the ER. Get to the hospital right now. The doctor says his condition is critical." My ears rang. Even though I knew this was part of my mother's plan, her incredibly authentic voice still made my heart clench. I tried my best to stay in character. "Mom, what are you saying? Which hospital is Dad at?" "Cedars-Sinai Medical Center." "Get here right now, Chloe." "I'm so scared." I hung up, my face pale, my hands and feet trembling. Seeing this, Kevin immediately asked, "What happened? You look pale." My dad had a stroke. He's in the ER. "I have to go there right now," I said, my voice cracking. Saying that, I didn't wait for Kevin to react. I grabbed my purse and documents from the counter and sprinted out of the bank. Kevin stood stunned for a moment, then hurriedly chased after me. "Chloe, wait. Let me drive you." "No need. I can go myself." I swatted his hand away, hailed a nearby taxi, and sped off. I left Kevin standing bewildered in front of the bank with his incomplete investment contract. Sitting in the taxi, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. My mother's act was flawless. I texted her. I left. A few seconds later, she replied, "Excellent. Go straight to the hospital, to the emergency department. I'm waiting there." I arrived at the hospital, and sure enough, I saw my mother sitting on the benches outside the ER, looking genuinely worried. Seeing me, she quickly pulled me into a hidden corner. How did it go? Did Kevin suspect anything? No. You acted so well, even I was startled. My mother sighed in relief. It had to be realistic for him to believe it. Now, listen to me. Go into the general clinic and tell them you're feeling dizzy and have a headache. Ask the doctor to check your blood pressure and run a few simple tests. Just stay in there until the afternoon. I will call Kevin and tell him your dad is stable, but because you were so worried, you fainted and have to stay for observation. That way, he won't suspect a thing. And what about the money, Mom? Give me your bank book and ID. I'm going to withdraw it right now and transfer it all into a much safer account. We have to do this immediately. We can't wait. I nodded, handing the items to my mother. Watching her figure hurry away, I felt an immense surge of love for her. Just because of my situation, my mother had to work so hard, worrying and calculating every step. I told myself I had to be even stronger so as not to let her down, to end this bitter play as soon as possible. Kevin's plot to steal $50,000 completely failed. Not only did he fail to get the money, but he also planted another seed of suspicion in my mind, strengthening the evidence of his deceit. After the failed hospital incident, Kevin appeared incredibly disappointed and irritable. He dropped the sweet, caring act and reverted to his cold, distant demeanor. He constantly asked me about the $50,000, saying the investment window was closing, that I was missing out on a massive windfall for both of us. I just used my father's illness as an excuse. I told him I didn't have the mental capacity to think about money, that I needed time to care for my dad. Furthermore, the hospital bills and medication would be expensive. I needed to keep that money as an emergency fund. Hearing that, Kevin couldn't do anything but storm off in a huff. He had no idea that the entire sum had already been transferred by my mother to another account under her name. Absolutely secure. The failure of his plan seemed to drain all of Kevin's patience. He came home less and less. Sometimes I wouldn't see his face for 2 or 3 days straight. He claimed he was on out-of-town business trips, but I knew he was with that woman in the Brentwood apartment. One Sunday afternoon, after visiting my parents, I felt a strange urge. I wanted to know what they were doing after failing to scam my money. Was a new plot forming? I decided to drive to the Brentwood. I didn't go to the coffee shop across the street like last time. This time, I parked on a small side street not far away and walked closer. I had no intention of staking out the apartment to see if Kevin was inside. I just wanted to take a walk around to see if I coincidentally spotted anything. As I walked past an upscale cafe located on the ground floor of the commercial plaza right beneath Tower B, a familiar scene caught my eye. Through the large, clear glass window, I saw Kevin. He wasn't just with Tiffany. Sitting at the table with them were my father-in-law and mother-in-law. All 4 of them were gathered around a round table, the atmosphere incredibly joyful and warm. My mother-in-law was personally cutting a piece of apple and feeding it to Tiffany. My father-in-law was smiling and chatting about something with Kevin. As for Kevin, he sat next to Tiffany, one hand resting on her pregnant belly, the other occasionally tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear with deep affection. They truly looked like a family, a happy, complete family eagerly awaiting a new member. I stood frozen outside, separated from them by only a pane of glass. All surrounding sounds seemed to vanish. I no longer heard the traffic or people talking. In my eyes, there was only that image, a beautiful yet unbelievably cruel image. So it was true. Everything I suspected was the truth. It wasn't just Kevin, his entire family, his parents, the people I once respected and called Mom and Dad knew everything. They not only didn't stop their son, but they happily accepted and even nurtured this illicit relationship. They had conspired to deceive me, conspired to steal my assets, to clear the path for his mistress and their soon-to-be-born grandson. A family alliance had formed against me. In their eyes, I was just an obstacle, a thorn that needed to be removed. My years of devotion as a daughter-in-law, my care, my support, it all meant nothing. The pain in my chest was no longer the agony of betrayed romantic love, but the freezing chill of trampled family ties. I had once thought that maybe his parents didn't know, that maybe they were also victims of Kevin's deceit. But no, they were accomplices. They were the masterminds behind it all. I didn't cry. My tears had dried up long ago. I just stood there watching them laugh and talk, watching them attentively care for their new daughter-in-law. I quietly pulled out my phone and took a picture of that moment. This photo, along with all the other evidence, would be my weapon. I turned and walked away, not looking back once. From this moment on, there was no lingering attachment or hope in my heart. This war was no longer just between Kevin and me. It was a war between me and his entire family, and I was determined not to lose. The photo of Kevin's family gathering with his mistress acted like poison, killing the last shred of sentiment left in me. But at the same time, it was an adrenaline shot that made me harder and more decisive than ever before. My mother and I knew we couldn't just remain on the defensive. We had to attack. We had to thoroughly understand their plan, so we could stay one step ahead. But how could we know what they were thinking? An idea flashed into my mother's mind one morning. An idea so bold it left me stunned. "I'm going to check into the hospital," my mother said, her voice as casual as if discussing the weather. "What are you saying? You're not sick. Why would you be admitted?" "If I'm not sick, I'll pretend to be sick," my mother winked at me. "Don't you realize a hospital is the best place to gather gossip? People are vulnerable there. They open up easily, especially older women. Who knows, we might get lucky." My mother's plan sounded absurd, but thinking it over, it made sense. It was a risky move. But in this situation, we needed risky moves. My mother had a history of high blood pressure. All she had to do was complain of dizziness and headaches, and she could get admitted for a few days of observation. And so, my mother was admitted to the hospital again, this time at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, the same place she had faked the stroke. She was placed in a shared room with 3 other beds. My mother quickly showcased her diplomatic skills. In just one morning, she became acquainted and friendly with the other 2 patients. She brought fruit and snacks to share, asked about their illnesses, and told funny stories to lift their spirits. And luck smiled upon us in the most unexpected way. That afternoon, a new patient moved into the last bed in the room. It was an older woman, about my mother's age, dressed simply, with a kind face. She was there to care for her husband, who was suffering from kidney stones. After a brief introduction, my mother learned her name was Helen. The 2 quickly struck up a conversation. They talked about children, family, and the worries of old age. According to our plan, my mother began complaining about her ungrateful son-in-law, but without mentioning Kevin or me by name. She just said her daughter married a terrible man and was suffering a lot of heartache. Hearing this, Helen looked very sympathetic. She patted my mother's shoulder to comfort her, then began telling her own family's story to relate. "I feel so bad for my niece too," she said. "My niece, Tiffany. Her love life has been so rocky. Luckily, she finally met a really good guy. He's a department head at a big firm, handsome and talented. He's about to leave his wife to marry my niece." When my mother heard the name Tiffany, her heart skipped a beat, but her facial expression didn't change at all. She feigned surprise. "Is that so? Well, that's a blessing for your niece. But why does he have to leave his wife? What's wrong with her?" Helen, perhaps finding my mother approachable and sharing similar burdens, didn't hesitate to spill her guts. She leaned close to my mother's ear and whispered like it was a shocking secret. "It's miserable, I tell you. His wife is getting old and she's barren. They've been married for years, and her belly is completely flat. His family really wants a male heir. Luckily, my niece Tiffany is smart. She's carrying his baby boy right now. The grandparents treat her like gold. A few days ago, the whole family went out to eat. The grandmother even fed her personally." My mother tried to memorize every word Helen said. She continued probing. "So when are they planning to get married?" "Well, they have to wait for the baby to be born first. My niece is due soon. Kevin, that's his name, Kevin. He said once his son is born, he'll have the perfect excuse to divorce immediately. The house, the assets, from his wife's side. His parents have already taken care of securing all of that. The ex-wife will just have to pack her bags and leave empty-handed. Who told her to be so unaccommodating and unable to have kids?" Helen spoke with a gloating, proud tone about her future in-laws' plan, completely unaware that the person listening was the mother of that very ex-wife. After hearing all of this, my mother's insides were churning, but outwardly she maintained an empathetic expression. Well, it truly is hard for a woman these days if she can't give them a son. Let me just congratulate your niece. That night, after Helen had fallen sound asleep, my mother snuck out to the hallway and called me. She recounted the entire conversation, not missing a single detail. Listening to her, my whole body shook with rage. So their entire plan had been laid bare. They were waiting for the baby to be born to use as their trump card, to back me into a corner, to legally strip me of everything I owned. I know, my mother's voice on the other end was as cold as ice. They want to play with their cards on the table. Fine, we will play with them. Let them be smug. Let the baby be born. That will also be the moment the curtain falls on this play. The time that followed passed in a tense silence. My mother and I knew their plan clearly, so he no longer had the patience to act. His ruthlessness was evident in his every look and word. The private investigator's office continued to send regular reports. Tiffany's belly grew larger, and her due date was approaching. Kevin took her shopping for baby supplies, went to prenatal appointments, and cared for her attentively like a devoted husband. Looking at those photos, I no longer felt pain, only boundless contempt. Then that day arrived. One Monday morning, Kevin hurriedly packed his luggage. He spoke to me with unusually cheerful tone. "Hey, I have to go on a sudden business trip to Chicago for a few days. There's a massive contract that needs to be signed immediately. Take care of yourself at home, okay? Okay. Travel safely." I smiled, personally packing his suitcase and ironing a few shirts, playing the role of the capable wife until the very end. He gave me a quick, superficial hug and hurried out. Watching his car disappear behind the gate, the smile on my lips vanished. I knew exactly what his massive contract was. Less than an hour later, my phone received a text from the PI. Subject did not go to LAX, arrived at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center maternity ward. Accompanying the text was a photo of Kevin's car parked in the hospital's parking structure. That entire day felt like I was watching a live broadcast. There was a continuous stream of photo updates and messages. Kevin and his parents were sitting in the waiting area outside the delivery room, looking both anxious and excited. A few hours later, a photo was sent. Kevin was holding a tiny red newborn baby, his face beaming with happiness. My in-laws stood beside him, smiling endlessly, their eyes glued to their grandson, unable to hide their pride. The text read clearly, "Baby boy, 7 pounds, mother and child healthy." So, his son had been born. The baby their entire family had been waiting for. The trump card in their plan had arrived. For the next few days, Kevin stayed holed up in the hospital. He lied to me, saying the work in Chicago hit a snag, and he had to stay a few extra days to resolve it. Every night he called me, his voice sounding exhausted, complaining about the busy work and the long meetings. "I'm so tired, Chloe. I just want to finish up quickly so I can come home to you." I listened to those lies over the phone while simultaneously swiping through the photos the PI had just sent. Photos of Kevin personally mixing formula for his son. Photos of him clumsily changing diapers. Photos of him sitting and cutting apples for Tiffany. Photos of his entire family gathered around the hospital bed, laughing and talking happily. That cruel contrast no longer hurt me. It only made my determination harder than stone. I replied gently, "You're working so hard. Please take care of your health. I'll be waiting for you at home." Every word I said was a needle pricking his hypocrisy. Though he didn't know it, while he was enjoying the joys of fatherhood, immersed in happiness with his new family, entirely unaware that his every action, every lie, was being meticulously recorded, waiting for the day it would be brought into the light. After a week in Chicago, Kevin returned home. He tried to act exhausted from work, but couldn't hide the joy glinting in the depths of his eyes. He brought me a box of local specialty chocolates, claiming it was a gift from Chicago. I took it, smiled, and thanked him, internally finding his clumsy charade laughable. My mother and I knew that now that the baby was born, they would act soon. Their next target, after the house and my personal savings, was undoubtedly the remaining funds in our joint bank account. It was the money we had saved up during our early years of marriage. Though not a massive fortune, it was a significant sum. I cannot let them take this last piece of our assets. We have to strike before they can. My mother spoke with a decisive tone. I immediately contacted my cousin, Megan. She worked as a branch manager at the bank where we held our joint account. I met her at a discreet coffee shop and told her the entire story. After hearing it, Megan was furious. Oh my God, how can such despicable men and families exist in this world? Don't worry, Chloe, I will help you. You are a joint account holder. You have full authority to withdraw the funds. We have to do it tomorrow. The next morning, I went to the bank to meet Megan. I brought all my necessary identification. Using an excuse prepared in advance, I told the tellers that I needed to withdraw all the funds in the joint account to cover my father's surgery costs following his recent stroke. This was a perfectly reasonable excuse, and no one would suspect a thing. With Megan's help, the procedure was quick and smooth. The entire balance of the joint account was withdrawn. Immediately, I took that money to a different bank and deposited it entirely into an account under my mother's name. Only when I held the transaction confirmation receipt in my hand did I truly breathe a sigh of relief. The final financial fortress had been erected. Now, Kevin and his family couldn't touch a single penny of my money. Sure enough, just a few days later, Kevin began to bring up money. He said Tiffany's health was weak after giving birth, and she needed a large sum of money for postpartum care and to look after the baby. He told me we should withdraw money from the joint account to cover it. I calmly replied, I withdrew all the money in the joint account to pay for my dad's hospital bills. Don't you remember? Dad had to have emergency surgery. It was very expensive. Hearing that, Kevin froze. The color drained from his face. He frantically pulled out his phone to check the account balance. When he saw the balance was only a few dollars, his face turned dark. He growled at me, "Why did you withdraw the money without asking me first?" I looked straight into his eyes, my voice cold. Then why did you use my credit card to buy things for your mistress without asking me? Why did you sneakily take my family heirloom and the deed to the house without saying a word to me? My dad was in the hospital, his life hanging by a thread. I used our money to save my dad. Is that wrong? This was the first time I confronted him directly. Kevin was completely caught off guard by my resistance. He stammered, unable to say a word, because everything I said was the truth. In a fit of rage, he slammed his fist on the table and stormed off, not forgetting to throw back a spiteful, "You'll pay for this." I knew the day he officially laid his cards on the table was not far off, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready. Everything was prepared. I was just waiting for him to personally open the final act of this play. Just as I predicted, after failing to get a single dime from the joint account, Kevin's patience ran out. He didn't want to waste any more time with me. The moment his entire family had been waiting for had finally arrived. The baby was 1 month old. Perhaps they thought that with their precious grandson in their hands, victory was assured. That evening, Kevin came home earlier than usual. He didn't eat dinner. He just sat in the living room, chain-smoking cigarette after cigarette. The atmosphere in the house was as heavy as the calm before a storm. After I finished cleaning up, I went and sat in the chair opposite him, waiting in silence. After the final cigarette burned down, Kevin crushed it in the ashtray and looked up at me. His eyes were cold, devoid of any emotion. "Let's get a divorce." Those 4 words were spoken dryly, as if he were discussing the weather. I didn't act surprised. I had been waiting for this sentence for a very long time. "What did you say?" "I didn't hear you clearly," I asked calmly, even though my heart still gave a slight twinge. He lost his patience, his voice turning into a snarl. I said, "Let's get a divorce. Do you not understand? The feelings between you and me have been dead for a long time. I have someone else, and I have a son with her. We should release each other." Saying that, he pulled a stack of pre-drafted documents from his briefcase and tossed them toward me. "Here are the divorce papers and the marital settlement agreement. I've already signed them. Read them and sign." I picked up the stack of papers, my hands not trembling in the slightest. I skimmed through the terms. They were even worse than I had imagined. He offered me a lump sum of $10,000 as spousal support. In exchange, I had to move out of the house immediately and waive all rights to any other assets. Regarding the house, he explicitly stated that it was the joint property of him and his parents, therefore I had no right to demand a split. After reading it, I looked up at him, a sneer forming on my lips. Did he think I was still the naive fool from before? $10,000. Did he think 4 years of being his wife, 4 years of maintaining this household, and my parents' massive financial contribution? All of that was only worth $10,000. Kevin smirked a smile full of contempt. Don't be greedy. $10,000 is me being generous, out of past sentiment. This house has my parents' names on the deed. You have no rights to it. If you don't sign, that's fine. Take it to court, and you won't get anything more. You'll probably just humiliate yourself further. He was so confident because he thought all the evidence was in his favor. He thought I knew nothing about his family's filthy schemes. He was waiting for me to cry, to beg, or to get angry and make a scene. But I did none of those things. I placed the papers back on the table gently. I looked straight into his eyes, my voice strangely calm. Fine. I'll sign. Kevin froze. My reaction was completely outside of his calculations. He didn't expect me to agree so easily. You're serious? I am, I nodded. But before I sign, I have one small request. What request? He asked, his eyes full of suspicion. I smiled. A smile that perhaps he would never forget for the rest of his life. The welcome party for your son's 1-month milestone. Where is it being held? Can I attend? After all, I am still your legal wife. I want to go see the baby's face, and also say a final hello to your family and friends before we officially end things. My request left Kevin utterly bewildered. He didn't understand what my angle was, but perhaps because he saw that I had accepted the divorce so swiftly, he thought this was just a harmless request from a defeated woman. After a moment of hesitation, he nodded. Fine. This Sunday, 7 p.m. at the VIP hall of the Ritz-Carlton. You can come, but don't try any tricks. Don't worry, I replied, the smile still on my lips. I'm just coming to offer my congratulations. Kevin didn't know that he had just personally delivered an invitation. An invitation for me to attend the premiere of a movie about his own deceitful life. And I was going to be the director of that movie. During our final week, living under the same roof, the silence was suffocating. Kevin almost never came home. He was busy preparing for the lavish welcome baby gala for his son, which was likely also a victory party for his entire family. As for me and my mother, we were also pouring all our energy into our final gift. We sat together night after night, reviewing every photo, listening to every audio recording, organizing all the evidence we had gathered over the past few months. From the very first images at the mall, the PI's reports, Tiffany's provocative text messages, the altered property deed, and the photo of their family gathered at the cafe, everything was strung together into a nearly 10-minute video, with background music that was sometimes soft, sometimes intense like a documentary exposing the truth. My mother even carefully added concise, sharp captions so no one could misinterpret the context. We titled this masterpiece, The Happy Family. On Sunday evening, I stood before the mirror. The woman looking back was no longer a tired, pale Chloe. I chose a luxurious, powerful burgundy silk evening gown. I applied my makeup carefully, highlighting my sharp eyes and deep red lips. I wasn't going there as an abandoned wife. I was going as a woman reclaiming her justice. My mother also chose an elegant, regal black velvet dress. She held my hand, her eyes filled with both sympathy and unwavering resolve. Let's go, honey. It's time to bring the curtain down. The Ritz-Carlton was brilliantly lit that night. The VIP hall was gorgeously decorated with balloons and fresh flowers. Kevin, looking dashing in a tailored suit, was standing at the door greeting guests alongside his parents. They looked so radiant, satisfied smiles never leaving their lips. Tiffany, wearing a pristine white evening gown, was holding the baby, sitting at the main table. They were surrounded by relatives and friends crowding around, showering them with compliments. The appearance of my mother and me caused the atmosphere at the entrance to dip for a moment. Kevin and his parents looked at us, their eyes clearly showing annoyance and caution. But in front of the guests, they could do nothing but force a stiff smile. "You came," Kevin approached, his voice carrying a warning tone. "I promised I would," I smiled in response, then confidently walked inside with my mother, ignoring the curious stares and the whispers behind our backs. The party was lively. After my father-in-law gave an opening speech, thanking the guests for coming to celebrate, the MC invited everyone to look at the large projector screen to watch a video capturing the baby's adorable moments. That was when I stood up. I walked onto the stage and took the microphone from the bewildered MC. Every eye in the ballroom turned toward me. Kevin and his family lost all color in their faces and started moving to stop me. "Sorry for the interruption," I said, my voice echoing clearly and calmly. "I am Chloe, Kevin's legal wife. Today, on this joyous occasion for the family, I also have a small gift. A special video I want to dedicate to my husband, his family, and to Miss Tiffany, as my blessing for this new chapter in their lives." Saying that, I signaled the AV technician whom my mother had pre-arranged. The lights in the ballroom dimmed, and the large screen lit up. The happy family video began. It opened with the footage of Kevin affectionately picking out clothes with Tiffany at the mall, with the caption, "March, my husband lies about meeting a client." Next came a rapid series of photos. Kevin and Tiffany, entering and leaving the Brentwood apartment, grocery shopping, eating at restaurants. Then the scene of my in-laws happily caring for Tiffany at the cafe, captioned, "The Family Alliance." Tiffany's shameless Instagram messages and DMs appeared crystal clear. The scanned copy of the altered property deed with the 4 names was blown up to full screen. And finally, the photos from the hospital, Kevin happily holding his illicit child while lying to me that he was on a business trip in Chicago. The entire ballroom was dead silent. The initial shock turned into whispers, and then into open, loud discussion. Everyone turned to look at Kevin's family with eyes full of disbelief and disgust. Kevin's face went from pale to purple. He screamed, "Turn it off! Turn this garbage off right now!" and rushed the stage to grab the microphone. But it was too late. The video ended with an image of the divorce settlement, offering $10,000, along with a final line of text. "This is the price for 4 years of my youth and everything I built." The lights in the hall flicked back on, and everything descended into chaos. People were yelling. Tiffany was shrieking and crying, and my mother-in-law was screaming curses. Guests began to abruptly stand up and leave, not forgetting to cast glares of pure contempt. The celebration had turned into a tragicomedy stage. Amidst that chaotic scene, my mother and I calmly walked out of the ballroom. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see their pathetic state right now. I had done what needed to be done. The curtain had fallen. And this was only the beginning of justice. The storm my mother and I created at the Ritz-Carlton had a more destructive impact than we imagined. That very night, video clips recording the chaos at the party, along with detailed accounts from the guests, began to spread across social media at lightning speed. The true face of the Golden Bachelor, Kevin, and his prestigious family was stripped bare for the whole world to see. Of course, they couldn't just sit still and take the beating. Backed into a corner, they launched a counterattack, a filthy, cowardly counterattack. Early the next morning, while I was still half asleep, a series of violent bangs and curses erupted outside my door. Looking through the peephole, I saw Kevin and his parents standing outside, their faces radiating murderous intent. I knew I couldn't avoid this, so I quickly called my mother and my lawyer before opening the door. As soon as she saw me, my mother-in-law lunged forward, raising her hand to slap me. "You bitch! You dare humiliate our family. Do you have a death wish?" I had anticipated this, so I took a step back, dodging her strike. Kevin and his father also charged in, yelling vulgar threats. They claimed I had fabricated everything, that I was blindly jealous, and had staged the whole video to destroy their reputation. Their argument, or rather, their one-sided screaming match, only stopped when my mother and my lawyer arrived. The presence of outsiders made them hesitate. The lawyer calmly demanded they leave my property immediately. Otherwise, he would call the police for trespassing and making terroristic threats. Knowing they couldn't do anything else, the 3 of them angrily left, hurling curses over their shoulders. But that was just the beginning. Unable to confront me directly, they resorted to underhanded tactics. A few days later, in neighborhood Facebook groups and across social media platforms, a barrage of posts smearing my name began to appear. They hired people to write articles painting a completely different story. In that narrative, I was a promiscuous wife who neglected her family and spent money recklessly. They claimed I couldn't have children, so I became bitter and jealous of other people's happiness. They even fabricated a story that I was the one who cheated first, and that Kevin caught me, so I turned around and bit him back to cover up my sins. Blatant lies and malicious comments were scattered everywhere, aiming to turn me from a victim into the villain. They didn't stop there. They resorted to even lower tactics. My front door was splashed with red paint, and foul-smelling trash was dumped on my porch. My neighbors began looking at me differently. Whispers followed behind my back every time I stepped out of the house. I was almost entirely isolated in my own neighborhood. Those days were incredibly heavy. Even though I was mentally prepared, facing such relentless, filthy attacks left me feeling exhausted and traumatized. There were times I just wanted to give up, to let it all go. But every time that happened, my mother was right beside me. Don't collapse, sweetheart. The more they do this, the more it proves they are terrified. They have no other arguments left, so they resort to these dirty tricks. Our job is to stay calm and collect all the evidence of this slander and harassment. The court won't believe internet rumors. They only believe in evidence. My mother's words gave me renewed strength. I listened to her. I didn't argue. I didn't explain myself on social media. I just quietly screenshotted all the defamatory posts and recorded the vandalism to my property. Everything was handed over to my lawyer. The legal battle officially began, and I knew it would be much more grueling, but I had no way back. I had to fight to the end, not just to reclaim my assets, but to reclaim my dignity and reputation. The legal battle dragged on, becoming more exhausting than I thought. Kevin's side, backed by his family's money, hired a formidable legal team. They continuously presented fallacious arguments, attempting to frame all my photos and videos as manipulated, deep-faked products of a jealous wife. The smear campaign on social media never ceased. The pressure from public opinion and neighbors weighed heavily on my shoulders. Even though my lawyer was excellent and constantly reassured me that we were winning, I couldn't avoid moments of panic and fear. At the peak of the tension, my mother once again became my savior. One evening, while we were reviewing the case files, my mother suddenly froze. Her eyes lit up as if she had just remembered something incredibly important. "Chloe, the smart speaker. I remember now." "What speaker, Mom?" I asked, confused. "The smart speaker I bought for your father-in-law's birthday last year. That smart home hub thing that takes voice commands to play music and the news. He isn't tech-savvy, so he only uses it to listen to the news radio. But I remember that model has a feature where it automatically records surrounding conversations to improve user experience or whatever, and saves them to the cloud." Maybe. A spark of hope ignited in me, but quickly extinguished. "But how are we going to get it back now, Mom? They definitely won't give it to us." My mother smiled mysteriously. "Leave that to me." The next day, my mother prepared a large gift basket filled with expensive fruits and ginseng supplements. She told me she was going over to her in-laws' house to pay a visit and have one final, reasonable talk. I anxiously wanted to go with her, but she stopped me. She went to their house alone. As expected, they initially refused to let her in. But my mother cried, saying that they were once family, and now that the kids are going to court, the adults should sit down and talk things out once to clear the air and avoid further neighborhood gossip. Perhaps wanting to maintain a final shred of dignity, they let her in. Once inside, my mother didn't even bring up the divorce. She just lamented about fate and destiny. Then, she skillfully steered the conversation toward my father-in-law's health. "Arthur, you're looking a bit tired lately. You must be stressing too much." "Oh, I just remembered that smart speaker I gifted you. Is it acting up? I heard the manufacturer say there's a recall for a free firmware update to make it run smoother. Do you want me to take it back and get it serviced for you under the warranty?" My father-in-law, who knew nothing about technology and was already in a foul mood, immediately nodded. "Yeah, take it. That piece of junk keeps glitching out. It's too much of a hassle. My mother-in-law was slightly suspicious, but my mother quickly added, "Yes, I'll get it fixed, or I'll just buy you a newer, better model." Consider it my final gesture of goodwill. Hearing about a newer, better model, she said nothing more. And just like that, my mother successfully retrieved the treasure. We immediately contacted a tech-savvy nephew of ours for help. He tinkered with it for a bit, connecting the speaker to his laptop and accessing the cloud account linked to it. Dozens of audio files appeared. We held our breath, listening to each clip. Most of it was just news broadcasts, old music, and mundane, irrelevant conversations. Just as we were about to give up, one audio recording made everyone stop dead in their tracks. The recording was captured one evening, about a month ago, right after Kevin had demanded a divorce. The voices of Kevin and his father rang out, crystal clear. "Dad." She agreed to the divorce way too easily. "You think she's plotting something?" Kevin's voice sounded triumphant. "What could she plot?" My father-in-law's voice replied. "The deed to the house already has our names on it. Her personal savings. We'll just scam the rest of it, and we're golden. I've already hidden her heirloom jewelry safely away. She doesn't have a single piece of evidence to demand anything. Just wait until the baby's 1-month party is over, and we'll kick her out. A woman who can't breed deserves to leave empty-handed, son." Kevin chuckled. "Good thing I was smart enough to slip the quitclaim deed in with that stack of employee loan papers. She's such an idiot, she trusted me completely and signed without reading a single word." We all sat stunned. This was it. This was the ultimate evidence, an irrefutable confession, recorded straight from their own mouths. It confirmed the entire systematic conspiracy to commit fraud and steal assets. With trembling hands, I saved that audio file to a USB drive. My tears fell once more. But this time, they were tears of relief and hope. Their dirty war, their slander, their despicable tricks. It would all have to end in the face of this ironclad evidence. Justice was finally within reach. On the final day of the trial, the atmosphere in the courtroom was incredibly tense. Kevin's lawyers were still confidently presenting sharp arguments, attempting to dismiss all my photos and videos. They maintained that everything was just the deduction of a jealous wife. Kevin and his family sat on the opposing benches, their eyes full of smugness, absolutely certain victory was theirs. Just as the trial seemed to be concluding unfavorably for me, my lawyer smiled and asked the judge for permission to present one final piece of evidence. "Your Honor, this is an audio recording, a recording that will illuminate the entire nature of this case." The USB drive was plugged into the court's audio system. The entire room went dead silent, and then the conversation between Kevin and his father echoed loudly and clearly. Every word about the plot to trick me into signing papers, the plan to steal my assets, and the intent to kick me out of the house empty-handed. Everything was exposed in its rawest form. The color on the faces of Kevin and his father shifted from smugness to shock, and then turned as white as a sheet of paper. My mother-in-law sat in the back row, her jaw dropped, unable to speak. They looked at each other, then looked at the smart speaker my lawyer was holding up as an exhibit. They never imagined that their own arrogance and malice had dug their own graves. The recording ended, but the silence in the courtroom lingered. The judge looked at Kevin with a stern, piercing gaze. Any attempt at denial now was pointless. The evidence was overwhelmingly clear and indisputable. The final verdict of the court was delivered. The quitclaim deed adding my in-laws to the property title was declared void due to fraud. The house was determined to be a marital asset, and because the vast majority of the purchase funds were proven to be a gift from my parents, combined with the extreme emotional and financial distress I endured, I was awarded full ownership of the house. Kevin not only received 0 assets, but he was also ordered to pay a massive sum in damages for emotional distress, defamation, and the full appraised value of the stolen vintage diamond heirloom set. Justice had finally been served. That day, as I walked out of the courthouse, I felt a boundless sense of relief. The exhausting war was over. I had won. The days that followed marked the total collapse of Kevin's family. The scandal being exposed caused him to lose his department head position. He was fired from his company. His reputation ruined, he couldn't find another decent job. Tiffany, seeing that her lover went from a golden bachelor to an unemployed man drowning in debt, didn't hesitate to pack up her baby and leave, cutting off all contact. Kevin lost everything: his career, his money, his family, and the mistress he had sacrificed everything to get. As for me, I didn't feel any gloating. I only felt peace. I sold the old house, the place that held too many painful memories. I used that money and the court-awarded damages to buy a smaller, cozier apartment flooded with sunlight for my mother and me. The shattered marriage took many things from me, but it also gave me a priceless lesson. It taught me how to be strong, how to protect myself, and most importantly, how to love myself. I was no longer the naive, weak girl I used to be. With a portion of the remaining funds, I decided to do something meaningful. I founded a small nonprofit organization called Rebirth, dedicated to providing free legal support and psychological counseling for women who find themselves in situations like mine. I wanted to use my own story and my experience to help others, so that no one else would have to endure the pain and helplessness I had once tasted. One afternoon, standing on the balcony of my new apartment, looking down at the bustling stream of people below, I felt absolute freedom and tranquility. The past was closed. I had found rebirth from the ashes of my marriage. A new life, with a new purpose, was wide open, welcoming me.